for graduation, I took her and two of her friends on a cruise. So we went on to Cambodia, right? Remember that joke? I'm not Dave Chappelle, but remember that. We went on a cruise, and so the crew ended up in Mexico, right? So we're in Mexico, and we're in Ensenada, Mexico, and we're driving along, and one of her friends saw an apartment and asked how much did that translate as, and the lady who was driving us told us, she said, Heather, look. She said, they go a whole apartment. It looks nice for $500 a month. And then my daughter was like, Dad, how much do we pay? I said, about 3 times that. And she said, well, maybe we should move to Mexico. I said, what happened to Cambodia? So then now they're in the car, it's like, Cambodia, Mexico, what do you want to do, right? So these teenagers in the car talking about, we just want to go somewhere where we can afford, right? This was just June 23rd. And so I want to begin with this question. Part of what this conversation today about the American dream and is it under distress or is it in trouble, part of it has to do with, is America affordable for us? And what are the various aspects of the America that we come to understand that would make it affordable? And so what I want to do is I want you to take about 4 or 5 minutes. Turn my next slide. Chad, you with me? All right. Next slide, all right? 5 minutes, right? At your table. Just give me 3 or 4 different aspects. When you think of the American dream, what are some aspects of the American dream that you think about, right? What is the American dream? Or what are aspects of the American dream? Give you about 4 or 5 minutes. This was the point I was going to play one of those songs. So at some point I'll say some lyrics, but what are the aspects? This little box here, that was the box where the music was supposed to go, right? Just let you know, I was playing. I was ready for it, right? But what are 3 or 4 elements of the American dream? Go. We are a divided nation, longing to become whole. We can find some semblance of civility and progress, but only if we learn to recognize and root out bad faith arguments and hypocrisy, cancers that have taken root at the heart of our political discourse. Who are going to be the ones who restore some sense of normalcy in Washington, D.C. or all over America? Who is going to be the one to show the American public that we've reached the end of bitter, hyper-partisan chapter of American history? We, Community Conversations in Springfield, we must plant our feet on the truth, must make our stock in trade, straight dealing, and good faith. By doing so, we might affect change in both parties, might return not to complete agreement, but at least to a civilized form of political disagreement. We might never be of one mind, but we might yet be one sound political body. This is an excerpt from Racism, Hypocrisy, and Bad Faith that speaks to the importance of this conversation and the importance of what's going to happen over the next 30 minutes, us engaged in conversations. Many of you might have various perspectives, but our goal is to have a civil discourse. Somebody tell me, assuming I'm in third grade, somebody tell me, what is the American dream? We got a microphone. Y'all, this is like a table that got all the answers.
Well, we will give one.
Okay. And then you can... One dream. Okay, we got one aspect of the American dream.
The ability to buy a house.
Okay. The ability to buy a house. The ability to buy a house. If you got that, take that on your bingo board, right?
The ability to pay for a college education yourself.
Okay. And is there a reason you added yourself to that?
Yeah, because I gave up a track scholarship at Mount Union, and my dad told me I would pay for it myself. I paid for my own education after I left Mount Union to Wright State.
Okay, I'm just
$20
curious.
in a credit hour, now it's over $300.
Oh, no, that's true. All right, affordable college education, housing. Anybody have a different one? Anybody?
Self-determination.
Self-determination. Okay, certainly an aspect of the American dream. Chad, are you good? All right. Anybody have anything different?
Well, we talked about being able to retire, being able to accumulate something.
Accumulate wealth to be able to
so
retire
that
comfortably.
When you need to, you can
Yeah, you ain't got to work till you croak over, right? Yeah, I don't understand that. That's somebody's dream anyway, even if you all have something different. Yeah, right. You got to fight for it.
I think we had in addition to that was being safe and secure.
That means in terms of space and like what do you mean by safe?
You can go to the movie theater.
A freedom of movement,
to
right.
the art museum, and feel safe.
And feel safe from violence or something.
From bodily harm.
Got you. Anybody have anything different over here? About the same thing? All right. Anybody have any different over here? I'm going to move a little bit. Thanks. Everybody taking notes? We're going to talk about it here in a minute.
One thing we said was the famous phrase, life, liberty,
Yeah.
and the pursuit of happiness. So freedom to make your own choices and have options and all the things that sort of tied in under that. That was something we talked about.
Okay, that's important. Sure. Let's certainly that's in the spirit of America. You have anything different? Okay. She's the scribe. All right, Sister Nancy. We only got 30.
Yeah,
okay.
we had most of these, but I think the idea that anybody can succeed if they work hard, the rags to riches sort of thing.
Sure. You have anything that's different? Okay, you can pass it back up here. You pass it back this way. Anybody have any different over here? Okay. All right. Huh? Jobs, just the ability to, choices of jobs. All right. So let's talk those out. So let me just ask, for some of you, do you believe that there is a crisis in the American dream right now? How many, or let me put it easier way. How many of you all still believe in the American dream? Okay. All right. Okay. How many believe that? So if you were to talk to my daughters and talk to her friends, or would you all tell them No, baby girl, stay focused on the American dream. Should I tell her that everything that you're seeking in America, that you're seeking, you can get here in America? Should I tell her that? Okay, all right. Interesting, let's start there. That's very interesting. So, one of the things about being a college professor is that, you talk to these younger folk, and they used to be, I got my PhD at 26, right? So I used to be like their age, right? And then at some point I became like big brother, and now in some cases I'm like granddad, you know what I'm saying? It is crazy, right? But one of the things that I found, especially I teach a social ethics class, actually in the Spirit where Claire at, right? I teach her late husband's class, and one of the questions that come up all the time is, why do I have to have that dream? Right? Why can't my dream be more global? Right? Why, if I can find a Cambodia, Mexico, or wherever, given that we have a world wide web, why can't I join a gig economy? Why can't I take part in at-home work? And at home becomes a beach in Jamaica. And part of that conversation, ladies and gentlemen, has to do with the affordability of housing. Part of that conversation has to do with the ability to feel comfortable in your space where you live. And so for some young people, instead of hearing conversations around, can I find the perfect place to live? If I can I afford it? If I can't afford it, what do I do? I don't want to live with my mama and my daddy forever. How do I find aspects of, I'll just move somewhere, log in, and work. Which then makes it interesting for those of us in America who, especially those of you in this room, who are part of previous generations. Right? So what are we talking about? Part of some of my ideas that came, everything what you just said, in three bigger words. Right? Freedom, the freedom to move, the freedom to purchase, the freedom to be, right? In a civil sense, in an existential sense. Right? Opportunity to gain access to education, to gain access to jobs, to gain access to housing. Equality, does my race, class, gender, lifestyle have anything to do with my ability to be better in this country? Right? The history of the idea, right? The history of this idea, they argue, comes from James Truslow Adams in the Epic of America, a book in 1931, where part of the entire book, he says, the American dream is a dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone. Nancy mentioned common catchphrases, the Horatio Alger story. Right? That's part of the American dream, right? Many of you have parents and grandparents who might have immigrated to America and they came here through rags, but they worked hard and they were able to take care of your parents and then take care of you, and then you were able to take care of your kids, partly because America afforded itself at a time that may not be right now. And some of you are living proof that the American dream has worked. And some of you are living proof that the American dream is slowly working in some parts. But the question is, do I have opportunities? Does everyone have opportunities? Is things equal? Am I free to have opportunities? Jobs and education, can I afford it? There's numbers that say, I was in college, in 1990? Undergrad, I was in college. When I was in college, I don't know now, but the school that I went to for undergrad cost like $10,000, which was a lot. Right? Howard University in D.C., about 10 grand was a lot at that time. Now we're close to 50. Same school. Per year. Can we afford education? We know that the meritocracy question, somebody said that. This was exactly what James Trudeau Adams talked about in his book. The idea that if you put the work in, hard work, hard effort equals merit and rewards. But I'm sure everybody in this room can tell a story about their lives, their children's lives, young people they deal with, older people they deal with who tried and try and try and try and try harder and still can't get it, whatever the it is. America. One of the lyrics I want to read, I'm going to do the whole thing because it doesn't read the same without the music. You got to hear a little, Drake and Trey songs. But the reality is that I'll just give you the hook real quick. He says, I want the money and the cars and the clothes. I suppose I just want to be successful. And this entire song, the video is interesting. So if you ever have time, you watch the video. It's really a really interesting video because it reminds me of Death of a Salesman. The actual video does, right? The idea of aspiration, the idea of attainment, and the idea of individuals wanting more for themselves, having people around them who getting it, who got it. And you're doing the same thing trying to get it, trying to gain access to it, and just can't do it. And so we know, those of you who've read The Death of a Salesman, you know how troublesome that was. But let's talk housing. This came from bankrate.com from 2024. Now, I'm not the IRS. I'm not getting in your business. But I'm sure there's somebody in here, maybe one person, that don't earn $129,000 a year. I'm sure somebody other than me. Right? But you say, well, Dr. Bailey, that's cool. But I'm married, and me and my wife, or me and my partner, we do it together. I was like, God bless you. America needs more of you. Unfortunately, 40% of Americans aren't married right now. And unfortunately, when that is the reality of marital relationships, and even in good old Ohio, where we look around the nation, it ain't that bad. A lot of us still cannot afford the average median income to afford a home. Let me tell you another quick story. I know you know this answer. I'm going to ask you your questions. I'm going to ask you a question about this. So I bought a home about 4 years ago. Great opportunity, cool, right? Got in good, everything was great, right? Right there on the south side, right across from the STEM school. And 2 years later, I get this bill from the insurance company telling me that my mortgage premiums have gone up $106. I'm just like, no, I locked in during COVID. I got 2.5%. I'm good. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. This wasn't no arm mortgage. This was a locked-in mortgage. So I called my mortgage company. What are y'all doing? Julius, it ain't us. Right? The insurance company heard from the county assessor who said your property value has increased. And when your property value increased, the insurance company kept calling. You bought a home at this rate, you're paid this much into your escrow for your insuring your property, but now it's more. I'm like, $102 more though? I start thinking for myself, well, okay, thank God I got a job, I can make it happen. But I start thinking about, what about all the people who barely bought the house, barely afford the mortgage, want to take aspect of that part of the American dream, only be told by the insurance company, and we know, I ain't got to tell none of y'all, you all know home insurance, auto insurance have been skyrocketing over the past 3 years. Right? How do they gain access? Right? So let's talk about that. How are you telling people? How are you informing your children, informing your nephews, informing people about how to gain access to home ownership? Let's talk about home ownership. Stay with me. Clean out the room. Stay with me. I'm an empty nester right now, unfortunately. I got plenty of room. But how are we having this housing conversation? Credit. What about credit? Credit. I know that's how you buy the home, but what are you talking to your children or people about in terms of your credit score? No question. Credit is important. My daughter took last fall, she took a senior econ class, and they got into that conversation, and she was like, Dad, like, what's my credit score? And I was like, I don't know, look it up. And she was like, well, can I buy a house? I was like, you ain't got a job. But I told her you got to start paying your bills. So I added her to a couple credit cards, let her get started. But reality is, it's important. I said, you got to be able to start paying your bills. And then you got to have, the credit mix and all that kind of stuff they talk about, right? But you're right, credit is important. And teaching young people about credit is important, right? Which I was glad to hear that Springfield High School did engage those seniors in that conversation. Yes, brother.
Talking about that credit score in your homeowners.
So what do we tell them, though? So what do we tell? So my daughter says, I'm moving to Chicago, Dad. I'm like, well, her first taste of reality is about 2 weeks ago. She needed her brakes fixed here in Springfield. She got it fixed. She got a lot of stuff done in her car pretty well. She go, here, it was easily $300 more. Right? Gas. She's like, Dad, gas is crazy in Chicago. I was like, catch the bus. Well, I got a car, but you can't afford it. What are we telling our young people about this American dream if, in fact, the ones who do graduate, that's a whole other conversation, the ones who do graduate and the ones who do gain access to some part of this economy, again, at the risk of being balanced here, the reality is that part of how laws operate and things operate, everything from the rising of minimum wages to the Affordable Care Acts to various type of things have some impact on small businesses. And the impact on those businesses to be able to hire folk, and to hire folk with sustainable wages, and to hire folk with enough hours. And so as a progressive, I'm all for it, but the reality is I understand if America is about meritocracy and profit, I worked my life for this business, and now I got to pay $15 an hour, and full-time is $30 hours or more, or 35 hours or more, whatever it is, and I'm going to start reducing your hours so I don't have to pay this. And some of us on the left, I get it, we get mad. You can't do that, business owner. They deserve a living wage. And I think about it, but if it was my pocketbook, I'm like, you got to cut back. You know what I'm saying? Right? So how do we talk in America about a conversation in the middle, left, right, whatever, where we want affordable wages so people gain access to resources, to gain access to houses or whatever you want. But the reality is that they can't get there because businesses are hemorrhaging on the small business side. Banks ain't crying. Right? But small businesses are hurting. Right? We see that here in Springfield. We see it all over Ohio, it's all over the country. It's not that people don't care about it. It's that how do I sustain my business in this economy, right? So how do we gain wealth in America? Somebody teach me right now. We got 18 minutes. Somebody teach me how to be rich.
Delayed gratification.
I know that's right. But I want it now. How long am I supposed to wait? Sister, how long am I supposed to wait? How long do I wait? I want a car. How long do I wait? How long? I mean, you said delay my gratification. It's okay. I'm 17. I'm 18. I graduated from high school. I did great. I got a 2.7, a 3.5, whatever it is. I graduated, right? I need a card, Mom. I need a card, Dad. You say delay that gratification, kid. And I'm going to say, okay, how long?
Until you can pay the payment.
Until you can pay for it.
Make the payment.
Okay. So you put the responsibility upon the child or the young person to pay. If they want it, you pay for your own stuff. Okay, that's one way. Go ahead. Well, you know, that's another part. That's part two of this conversation, right? Right? I mean, really, in terms of cyclical poverty, right? The ways in which just the reality, and even not poverty. Poverty is one question, but just the question of the middle class, right? Of the middle class in the 1960s that pretty much ran America with unions and all this kind of stuff like that. That went from like 50 to 60% of the American economy to about 25% right now. Right? So what does it mean to be a middle class American? Right? Right? So you're right. So you almost have to have rich parents, right? Because even us middle of the road folk, we're hemorrhaging in debt, right? And so how do you gain wealth in America, y'all? Tell me, teach me. I need to teach other people how to be rich.
Live with your parents till you're 30.
Till you're 30. Save money, assuming you're working.
That's the average age.
30.
Leaving home at
About 30. Okay. Okay. So you telling me I should tell my daughter to move back home? No. So go ahead. No. I'm going to have to work 3 jobs, brother. I can't do that. Go ahead, sister. Right. So I don't have a lot of time to push this back, but if we were in a classroom, what I would say to you is, what does that look like, right? So if most of America, right, especially those, of course, according to the CNBC rate from last year, most of America is pretty much living paycheck to paycheck, right? And at what point, how much do I put aside? Even if I say, well, but put aside $100, that's cool. $100, how long is that going to help me to retire in 40 years? So I think you're right conceptually, but when the money ain't there, right? Do you know Cynthia? You all both wanted a delayed gratification and stuff, yeah. I know. True. Reduce the grande to a latte. I don't know. I don't drink that stuff, but Folgers, right? We got 8 minutes, I think. Yeah. So another quick, very like 20 seconds. Not this semester, but maybe last fall in that same ethics class, there was a conversation around children, right? And again, these are Wittenberg students, average, I'm from freshmen to juniors. And so I asked them, how many of you in the room want children, right? And this is a class of about 27, 28 people that day. I generally have about 35, but a few of them slept. It's a 9 a.m. class, But hit about 26 people. And literally, and I wrote this down that day, 7 people raised their hand out of 26. So of course, I'm a philosopher. I need to know why. Right? Why? Because again, excuse me for the Puritans in the room, I know y'all having sex. So if you're having sex and don't want kids, like, what's going on? I can't afford it, Dr. Bailey. I'm going to leave at Wittenberg. I'm going to have debt. My family's in debt. And how can I afford children? I got child care. I got all those people. They're thinking now at 17, 18, I don't want no kids. But yet, that's a part of what your parents and grandparents and baby boomers, and even before baby boomers, to baby boomers, to Gen X, to Gen Z, to everything, whatever follows, right? All of us have 2.1, 1.2, whatever kids. Have a house. These kids are saying, I can't afford it. Now, the flip side of that is, right, and I think you might remember this, Tracy, the flip side says, sometime in April, my daughter had an online class. An online class asked her it was about taxation. And question was, what is the best way to earn money from the government, right? And one of the answers in there, which unfortunately was the right answer, at least according to these 4 answers, was to have children. And I ain't gonna say this on video, but I was upset, right? I was upset. Now, what I had to explain to my daughter, though, was whoever wrote this, right, is looking at child tax credits, is looking at earned income credits, blah, blah. So they're speaking from a poverty perspective. So if, in fact, you want to get a check in February, have 3 kids, right? And that was on a test. So I explained to my daughter, no, just no, right? Sit tight, right? Delay gratification, We can take about 8 minutes. They say right now in America that 52% of adults in America are married at this moment, right? So 47% of Americans right now of marital age are not married. This morning, I didn't fact check this at all, so I don't quote this. You all can fact check this on your own. But somehow I was watching some conversation around the Olympics, and somehow in the Olympics there was a conversation around marriage, and they said that it's something about America, that America's its rate of divorce is about 50%. And I was like, Jesus. Now again, I ain't but two left. I don't know if that math is right, but I understand what you're saying, right? And I thought about it. I'm a victim of that. Right? I'm divorced. Right? But I thought about it, like, if this is what America is, now we're going backwards now before we close this out. If 48% of adults right now are unmarried, and even those who are married, half of them are likely to, if the numbers are right, to divorce, then you're going back to the reality of this. Why not move to Cambodia? Why not move to Mexico and teach English? Right? I don't have an option, Dad. I don't know what else I can do. Dad, you're not married. I can't, and I don't know if I want to be married. And I say, well, don't do what I do. So I got to think, right? But the reality is that young people are seeing this too. Now, of course, I have this conversation. It's definitely not moral, but I certainly asked them. I said, do you think that people should get married for economic reasons? Like, no, you gotta get married for love. I was like, what love got to do with it? Look at these numbers. Love is overrated, young kid. Look at these numbers. Maybe you should get married so you can put some money in your 401k. Maybe you should get married because you can cut them bills in half. Maybe you get married for your insurance. You ride around here single, everything will keep going high. Now, of course, Dr. Bailey, that's not right. Like, I probably shouldn't be saying that at a fine little school like Wittenberg. What are the challenges to the American dream? We don't really have a lot of time to talk about this, but I do want to ask you, we got about 5 minutes that I can ask you to kind of jump out there. These are two things that I in broad terms, but I want you all to talk about. We talked about actually some very specific issues, but anybody else think of, so what are the challenges to living out the American dream today? Anything maybe you thought about since we've been talking for the last 45 minutes? Yes. Yeah, no, that's real. Me and my sister had this conversation, and I told her under all circumstances she would be taking care of my mama. I mean, and I know my mama's watching this, so I'm not lying. I mean, isn't that what sisters do? Like, what am I here for, right? I'll pay the bill, I guess. But no, that is right? The unfair burden, the sort of gender inequity, both in terms of financial wealth, but also in terms of the various types of bills and the various types of financial responsibilities that oftentimes burden women more than sometimes the brothers. I understand that, right? Anybody else? What are some other challenges to the American dream? And I would put that under structural inequality, right? I would put that under that aegis. Yes. Yeah. Well, Bridget, first of all, you should make sure that they meet good professors like me and Rob Baker. And once they meet us, they're going to be like, hey, I'm going. Like, sign me up, right? But I think you're right. What is the value of education, both from a financial perspective, but really just from a sort of lived experience a perspective, right? What can't I get access to on the internet that I can get access to in some classroom with some dude named Bailey, right? That kind of thing, right? I got you. Right here, sister. Give me a second. But is there a same amount of security? Right. Well, I mean, TikTok and stuff like this is trying to do stuff like that, but it ain't gonna do it for everybody, though, right? Well, I'm just saying, but the ability to sort of create these sort of economies outside of a workplace, right? Where TikTok and Instagram and all those things have access to, right? So you're marketing, you're engaged more, or whatever you're doing, you're engaged in social marketing. And then that social marketing pays these bills, right, at a certain level, right? So there's a scene in Successful where they're driving down the street and they see kids playing basketball. And the conversation students always have is that, how many people in America have this vision of being the best basketball player in America and being the best basketball player in the world. And then they work all this time, getting access to it. And so part of the thing about, I suppose, the question they ask in the video is whether or not these are the routes that I should take, or what are the proper routes that I can take. And so passions for things are one thing, and I think that's important, certainly, to drive anything. Here, then we'll close up.
My nephew.
Got you. No, that is a challenge. All right, these last two, and let's wrap this up. Yeah, we're such a hyper-consumerist society, right? But that's part of what capitalism does, right? So, it kind of goes. It's the, what do they call it? It's the I don't know. It's par for the course, right? We are a capitalist nation, and capitalism's goal is to make money and to get people interested in goods and services. And goods and services then often take the form of everything from water to shoes to everything else. And so sometimes, back to the conversation about what do kids do nowadays, sometimes this delayed gratification is if Bailey and everybody tell me I need a 700 score, I don't think I'll get a 700 score because my mom ain't never had a 700 score. My grandma ain't never had a 700 score. Their parents ain't never had a 700 score. So ain't nobody in my family had a 700 score, so I ain't gonna get one either. So I might as well take this money and go to Florida and kick it on the beach, right? And so you see young people now buying stuff and consuming stuff and realizing that, hey, I got access to a little money here, I got a credit card, right? Not thinking about long-term. Why? Because this American Dream thing was a long-term thing about generations. But if our kids ain't thinking about generations, right, we can ask Tracy about this. If we have issues of violence and things like that, you talk to these kids in the work that I do with mental health, these kids ain't thinking about 20 years down the line, right? So what they're trying to figure out, how can I be happy now? Right? Last point, right here.
I was just thinking about a little bit of pushback
Go ahead.
in terms of, okay, so you don't have a dream.
Yeah. And young people nowadays are doing that. And to her point, the reality is that, they're involved in 2, 3, 4 different things. You know what I'm saying? And so, I don't like the language, but they'd be like, what's your side hustle? What's your hustle next to your side hustle, right? So they're engaged in all kind of things to gain access to maybe what Navistar would have made 30, 40 years ago. A lot of these young people are trying to figure out 4 or 5 different ways to make that, right? Let's go ahead and close this out, right? Chinamen are getting to be altogether too plentiful in this country. The refugees seeking haven in America are poor and disease-ridden. They threaten to take jobs away from Americans and strain welfare budgets. They practiced an alien religion and pledged allegiance to a foreign leader. They were bringing with them crime. They were accused of being rapists. At 2 points in America, those was language coming out of our United States Congress. Right. Does anybody have any idea what was America's response to these 2 quotes? Go ahead. Chinese Exclusion Act, right? Don't allow them to come to America anymore. Right? Well, that's another, we don't have time to get there, but that's right. All right, so very good. You get an A for today. You always say that? All right. I think I got some cookies or something for you over there. What about the second one? What about the second one? Right. Pretty much, right? Anybody know what the second one is? The Irish. So in 1924, the Johnson-Reed Act was created specifically in reference to Irish immigration, right? So now, think of that language, right? And as we close this up, this is Springfield, Ohio. Right? These are just headlines from newspapers. Right? You got 1924 and 1890 and 2024. When we think about the American dream, and we think about the aspect of the American dream that throughout the history of America included immigrants, right? The question that we ask ourselves is the question that the brother asked the other day. He said, the Haitian brother said, I got 4 kids. I just want my kids to have a better future than I. This is a Haitian brother just asked that last week. I said, this is September 8th. That was August 8th. Sorry. He'll probably say it again in September. That's called foreshadowing. August 8th, right? And the reality is for me, I'm not, again, this is a political conversation but this language is not different from that language. And so if we believed, which I want to close with this, if we believe in the American dream, the moral question for us to ask is, who is that dream for? And if we are engaged, whoever the we is, me, any of us, if we are engaged in conversation that excludes individuals from having the same dream that they had 100 years ago, we have to ask ourselves, is that hypocrisy? Is that pragmatism? What is it called? And so in a conversation like this, community conversations, where we're asking the question of whether or not the American dream is under stress, we have to certainly engage ourselves in the economic and opportunity question. We have to certainly engage ourselves in the question of equity and who has access to what and how they get access to what. And I think we have to have also a conversation, around fairness, right? And maybe the dream, I don't know, right? I don't know what we can say about it. But I certainly thank you for being engaged in the conversation, for thinking about it tonight. I thank you for helping me to make this hour go past. And I typically teach hour-and-a-half classes, so this has been tough, right? Trying to do this in an hour. But listen, I hope this conversation got you to think about some things. Next week, right? Next week we come, 2 weeks, right? We come back. Well, first of all, got to have the book. The book's on sale. This book, any of my books we ain't got today, you can go to juliusbailey.com, get any of my books there, right? Don't go to Amazon, please. I don't make no money off Amazon. I need to be honest about that. Don't buy Professor Baker's book off Amazon. Don't go to Amazon, right, at all. But anyway, you can go there. I have them there or not. Other than that, certainly I want to invite you back in a couple of weeks, Monday the 26th, for the final conversation. And, not the final, the next conversation in the conversation. So I don't know who I'm supposed to turn this over to, but thank you for your time, and have a good day.